questions?
Madam Mayor, what would it take to reinstate the surveillance plane that was active during 2016?
So here's what is happening thus far. I think that when they did that in 2016, we saw a reduction in violence in the city. But I don't think the community was made aware of it. So I think part of it is getting the community understanding what it is, and more importantly, hearing from the community that this is something that they want. What we don't want people to feel like is that we're being invaded, but here's the reality. We have cameras up all around the city. If we didn't have cameras up, we wouldn't be able to, find those who are creating the crime problem in our city. So we have cameras. This one, my understanding, sits above, and it really would help the police department in terms of tracking where the individual is, in terms of leaving. You can't really identify the person. So we've heard from a number of communities that this is something that they want. So I'm going to have a conversation with the president of the city council. I'm sure that the city council will have a public hearing, and so I think it's a good tool in the toolbox. I've had conversations with our police commissioner, and we've also had conversations with, where's Drew, so I can make sure I say his name correctly, Sean Malinowski, who also thinks it's also a good tool in the toolbox.
We were talking earlier about the 20 new positions.
Yes.
And you were explaining that they were in multiple agencies.
Yes.
There's homeless outreach, there's neighborhood.
Right. So you all know that homelessness is a major problem in our city. And I think we had one person in the homeless office. And one of the things I've said is I need people to understand how our city operates. Our city is 24 hours. And so that means that you need people out there 24 hours dealing with some of the problems that the city's facing. Homelessness is a major issue. We don't just go move people off the street. We have conversations, we do surveys, we try to locate places where they can go, we try to accommodate them, and so it requires more than one person. So several of those positions will be going to the Office of Homelessness. I've said the same thing to our Office of Neighborhoods. I don't need to see Office of Neighborhood people sitting up in my office at 9 o'clock in the morning. Even if I do work at 4 a.m. in the morning until midnight, everybody doesn't do that. But I need folks out in the streets and in the communities. And so these will be folks, as you well know, we got 14 districts, city council districts, we got 9 police districts. I want folks to be able to move around the neighborhoods and communities and ascertain some of the issues that we're facing so that we come back and bring the proper resources to those neighborhoods and communities. When we were meeting this morning at the Violence Reduction Initiative, one of the things that the police commissioner and I agreed on was that we need to consistently reinvent ourselves in terms of how we're approaching these issues. So on a Saturday, for example, we've said this to the Violence Reduction Initiative. Let's go out on the corner of Pennsylvania and Lawrence. Let's block off the street. I've done it. I've done it and been surrounded by 40 men telling me what their needs are. So why can't I, depend on you all to go out into the communities on a Saturday afternoon with all of the resources that we have so that we can properly address the needs of the people. So yes, this is so that we can spread out, that we become a more 24-hour city in terms of the services that we provide.
And there's a new director of Black Male Achievement.
Yes. I was saying to Broadwater a little bit earlier that one of the questions that I asked the mayor of New Orleans as he's leaving office, I said, tell me what you didn't get done. And he said, to be frank with you, Mayor, it was dealing with the problems of black men in my city. I never felt like I really got a hold of that problem, and nor did I address it in a way that I think that it could be addressed. And so I started looking around the nation to see if anybody else was addressing that particular issue. And you all know returning citizens, underemployed, even when you look at folks with the highest degrees, still difficulty getting proper employment. So Philadelphia does have an African American Male Initiative office, and so Dr. Bunley, who was a part of my call to action team, I asked him if he would go up to Philadelphia and take a look at that office, and I believe that this office will help us to get our arms around many of the problems that black men in the city are facing. And I just want to say this, and it's not just black men. Some of you may or may not have seen the Facebook post with the woman screaming out that my child was killed and I can't deal with this. And I felt compelled to reach out too, and I did. I picked up the phone and called her, asked her what could I do. And so she was in here yesterday and Monday, and had a conversation. But I also reached out to Dr. Perman. And I said to Dr. Perman, you know, as she said to me, the young lady said to me, I lost my son to violence. I'm asking people to stop being so violent in these neighborhoods and communities, but I'm in pain. This was in 2015, and she's still suffering. And I'm sure many families out there are still suffering from those who've been killed by gun violence or violence in our city. So what I said to Dr. Perman is that this begs a conversation on how do we help people heal. You know, if you have a baby, you can stay out for, what, 3, 6, 9 months now? When a child is killed, how long can you stay out of work before you lose your job? And what are we doing to make sure we heal people? And so Dr. Perman, University of Maryland, I'm sure others, will help me engage in that conversation. But how do we heal the pain of suffering that so many in our cities have been faced with? And how do we get our arms around black men in the sense that they can feel that they can be elevated, inspired, and move forward? And that's what that office is doing. And just one other thing on that. And mentoring. You know, I'm calling on everybody in our communities. And, you know, if you don't do anything else, find a child in your neighborhood. You know, find a child who needs to be mentored. And I've heard people, I've seen posts about, you know, yelling at a young child who I said, go to school. But what people don't know is that that's not all we did. We reached out to that family that was homeless, by the way. We've gotten them services. We've gotten him mentoring services. He works in our Be More Beautiful campaign on Saturday, where we now have almost 40 young people who are making $10 an hour for $4 hours a week and 4 hours a day. And so our goal, and that goal of that office, is to help us elevate and become more inclusive and deal with the problems that many in our communities are facing.
And then one more on this topic, there's also communications jobs. What's the goal of those?
So we have a Director of Public Affairs office, which was already there. It was called marketing. We changed it. It's actually going to be changed to Director of Public Affairs, which deals with all the events of the mayor's office. You know, we do everything from 22 concerts in communities throughout our city, movies, nights, all kinds of events that this office deals with. And then there are some communications people for other offices, like the Office of Employment Development, Office of African American Engagement. All of those offices require that. What people don't understand is that the mayor's office is layers. There's the mayor's office of criminal justice. There's the mayor's office of employment development. There are all kinds of offices of the mayor. It just comes under that label of the mayor's office.
So these will be
spread
in various agencies?
Yeah, in various agencies and so forth. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Would you
Thank
like
you.
to comment on the Forbes article again? I know there was a...
Baltimore is one of the 10 coolest cities in America. So says Forbes, so says Mayor Pugh.